I've lived in California for 2 years and I have yet to try a California whiskey, so we're gonna do that today. Welcome back to Bourbon Bites. I am Clifton, and today we are trying West Coast whiskey. So I want to give a huge shout out to the folks over at 117 West. They sent me this bottle to review. Like I said, I've never had a California whiskey, it was crazy. I love craft distilleries, and I tried a few different ones back when I lived in South Carolina. But since moving out here to California, I really haven't had the opportunity to try any of them. So what better way than to start with a whiskey that's really unique? So 117 West is actually from San Diego, California area. Master distiller Justin McCabe is actually a UC San Diego graduate, actually has a doctorate in chemistry. So I guess he was inspired by his studies to make a whiskey. So like I said, this is their West Coast whiskey, which is actually 100% malted barley. So this is something very different from what I'm used to, at least in most American whiskey. I'm more of a bourbon guy usually, but I love branching out. And one thing that I really love about craft distilleries is they have the freedom to experiment a bit. They're not necessarily, bound by, the Kentucky tradition with bourbon. They get to go out there, do something different. And I think this is a really unique spirit based on what they tell you on the bottle. Hey guys, future Cliffie here. So in the process of the mess that we've made while moving to a different apartment, I missed this amazing, sweet handwritten letter from the 117 West team. It's from Paige McCabe. So I wanted to read it out. It has some good info about the whiskey itself. They are a small family-run distillery. They've been only operating for about 2 years. And they use a 100-gallon pot still for all of their whiskey. So they seek out specific strands of malted barley. This time they're using crystal, chocolate, and roasted barley. And then they age it in small charred American oak barrels. So with the small barrels, that aging happens a lot faster. That oak influence is way more apparent than a larger, let's say like a bourbon barrel. And they do say that this whiskey was actually inspired by stout beer. So they mentioned the chocolatey and roasted notes with like caramel vanilla that you typically find in a beer like that. So Paige actually recommended it in an old fashioned. So I have one here. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. And I will say, it's pretty freaking delicious. It's definitely different than like a bourbon old fashioned. Instead of like the corn sweetness, you get more of a caramel sweetness when doing it in an old fashioned. So thank you for the suggestion, Paige, and thank you to the entire 117 West team for this letter. I'm gonna hang it on my wall somewhere. So for now, let's get back to the review. I've had something similar to this, but it's been a really long time, and it's not what I typically drink. So I'm really excited to see what it brings. Whoa, what a interesting nose. That's something that I didn't expect. That's really roasty. I guess roasty is the first thing that comes to mind. It's almost more like a coffee than a whiskey. Like a vanilla, like I guess like a toffee nut kind of flavor of a coffee. Very, very chocolatey. I know they say they use like a chocolate grain, which I've had experience with. I don't know if it's related, but Balcones, their rye uses a chocolate rye. I don't know. I'm not a grain expert. I'm sorry. But it does give me very similar, really rich, chocolatey, almost, it's not quite espresso. It's like a lighter like nose than espresso. Really good though. So I'm really excited to see how it carries over on the taste. Cheers. So the front of the palate, you get more of those like vanilla toffee notes. It's still got that kind of coffee element to it, but it's way richer, and that rich roasty flavor is really, really nice going down on the finish. Now, like I said, they do use smaller barrels. There is a good bit of oak on that finish, and I think the proof, I think if it were a higher proof, it may be a little overpowering, but with it being that 90 proof, I think it's a really good balance of the heat from it being, aged in smaller barrels. Usually those are a bit hotter, but with it being barley versus, like a rye, which is, typically, jumping out of the glass spicy, this is super approachable compared to other craft spirits I've had here in America. So 117 West actually does a bourbon and an American single malt. So I'm really excited to try more stuff from them. I think they know that I'm a bourbon channel, and I think they sent it to me because they knew that this was unique. They want to be a craft distillery that's doing something different, and I can appreciate that. So thank you again, 117 West, for sending over this bottle. Now, MSRP on this is about $60 on their website. I think it's priced perfectly, and I definitely highly recommend picking this up, especially if you're from California and you want to try more local distilleries. I think they're doing something right and they're doing something different. All right, I'll see you guys next video, most likely from a different apartment because I'm in the process of moving, if you notice the mess behind me. So thank you guys so much for watching Bourbon Bites, whiskey reviews with a retro twist. I'm Clifton, and this has been 117 West Spirits. Cheers.